Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Diggen's Point podcast. This is Glorf.
This is Fort.
And this is the Doug. Woo!
We are here for another podcast. We are beginning this week. We're excited to start this year of preparation for Stormlight 5. And so we will be beginning book club again, just as we did with the Skyward series. We will be doing book club each episode, covering a certain number of chapters. We're excited to start that again today. But first, for introductions, we will be doing Kiss, Marry, Kill. Those of you that aren't aware of that game, we're going to give each other 3 Cosmere characters, and each of us will have to choose which one we would kiss, which one we would marry, and which one we would kill. And I will be starting with the Doug. So kiss, marry, kill, Doug. Yasna, Serene from Elantris, and Alrianne from Mistborn.
Oh, well, that's intense. Okay, oh man, I have to
Those
off
are good
one of
ones.
them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, so we'll start with I'd probably kiss Ariane just because I don't feel like she deserves to get knifed in the head, but also because I don't think she's wife material. Like, I'm sure she's nice enough and she's very pretty, I'm sure. As far as Serene seems like major wife material. I'm just saying, like, you're like, oh man, this is one of the few marriages in the Cosmere. You're like, oh, this worked out. They're all happy together and everybody lives happily ever after.
Well, I mean, except when she first marries him, he's dead. So
Well,
that's
yeah, that's
unfortunate.
always inconvenient, but we're talking about long term. Like, she's all like, I know what I need to do. I've got plans. Like, I feel like she's the person that would make me be a better person. So that leaves having to off Yasna. And
Now,
it's
do you
just
think
because
you have the capability of doing that? Is the
well,
question.
I'm not asking if I have the capability. Clearly, I don't. But that's the thing is that I'm like, ooh, I'm a person. I like to cuddle. I'm a big cuddler. I like snuggling with people. And Yasna, she's not a big snuggler, and so I'd be all like, no, I can't marry you. And I feel like if I kiss her, it'd be like, I'd give her a kiss and be like, okay, well yep, that we did
Yeah.
kiss it because it's gonna be a little. It's gonna be like just a little peck, like just like kissing your sister, just barely glide. Whereas if because if you try going all Cthulhu on her face, she's gonna probably smack you. So that leaves her there. And and of course, it'd just be the Almighty's justice because she's a heretic. So
Okay.
that's where I'd have to go with. Any questions? Anybody challenge why my reasoning here?
Don't we know that Yasna is like affectionate to Wit to some extent?
Yeah, but she
Um,
doesn't like it. And
Intellectually, that's
yeah,
about the extent of it.
like see,
She's fond
Yasna
of
would
him
be a great.
intellectually,
Yeah, she'd be a great person to sit down and have a conversation with. Like I could talk with her for hours and we'd just argue about all sorts of things and it'd be very fascinating. But I'd be all
but
like,
not to kiss or marry. Um,
yeah, yeah.
Wait till
So
Stormlight 10 comes out. That's when it'll end with her wedding. That's really the
that's
ending
your
of
prediction.
Stormlight 10. Yeah, it ends with Yasna's wedding. Who she marries, it'll probably be someone we find out in book 6, but it's going to be Yasna's wedding.
I still just think it would be hilarious if Kaladin and Yasna ended up together. They should be like, I find you annoying. Quit being depressing. It's illogical to be depressed. Stop it. Just think happy thoughts. It'd be hilarious. And then he'd be all like, because I'm
Yasna would
just
be like
saying,
that sounds like a grumpy Peter Pan. Just think happy thoughts.
exactly. I'm just saying they have a lot of chemistry, and the scenes that they have, they argue and they constantly are going back and forth at it, but not like, oh, I don't like you. It's like, oh, you guys like each other, don't you? I mean, not really, because
No.
Kaladin's incapable of feeling anything except depression and sadness most of the time. But I'm just saying, I feel like there's some chemistry there. So the question I have now for Fort
That's me.
Tin, uh, Tindwell, and who's the last one? Uh, I just had
Is
it.
it another T?
Yeah, no, crap. Moonlight. I don't remember what the third one is, so I'm pulling up Moonlight.
Uh-huh.
Moonlight is
Moonlight
shy,
slash
right?
Shy.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So Kilton,
Why? Come on. She seems like a
she's
fun-loving
already
guy.
dead. She's already dead. It doesn't matter.
No, well, we're assuming they're not dead.
I know. I just out of those 3, I'd kill Tin, kiss Moonlight, and marry Twindle.
You'd marry Tindwell?
Yeah.
Why'd you marry Tyndall? You have it for the Cougars?
No.
Imagine you're the same
Tyndall-
age.
Yes. Tyndall is a very nice person who can help people achieve all that they can be and can help push you and do better.
Okay, I'll definitely agree she's a person that like helps you do better, but would you really say she's a nice person?
She like
She has
can
an interesting aspect of how she does things, but I mean, in the end, it's all for the best. And she's also not going to hold back her opinion or lie to you for the sake of your feelings. So
Like,
honesty and
you see the way she treated Szeth toward the end, right? She can get very gentle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so cute and so tragically.
Yeah.
Why would you kiss Moonlight then? You just think she'd be good at making out? Is that it?
Possibly. I mean, I don't know. It's just
I mean,
out of those three options, I've already killed Tin. I'm marrying Twindle. Moonlight,
Tyndall's dead too. You
yeah,
say 2 out of the
but
3
I
are
kill
dead.
I kill Twindle. I kill Tin. I marry Tyndall. That leaves Moonlight to kiss, which I'm totally cool. Like, she's not going to be on the planet for long. She's part of the Ghost Blood. She's moving around. She's doing stuff. I mean, she don't got much time for a long-term relationship necessarily. I mean, just a nice, good kiss, a nice little makeout sesh, and then, I'll be happy.
Okay, so you guys just spend one wild
She
night
can
going
also
Cthulhu on each
forge
other.
herself into whoever I want. So, I mean,
Ooh. See, to me that's wife material right there, because it's all like, you know what? I don't like that you do this, and she'd reforge her personality. So
then you're just getting Shalon.
or better yet, she could reforge your personality. Listen, I'm going to give
Terrifying.
forging you. You now have a compulsive desire to clean.
I
Just
need
wake up.
that.
Hey, honey, close your
Oh.
eyes. I got a present for you. Why am I feeling my spirit web changing? Yeah, don't worry about it, honey. It'll be all right in a minute.
You have a terminal illness. You need to apply this every 2 hours.
Uh,
Oh, Glorf, are you ready for yours? I wrote yours
Oh,
down.
I was born ready.
Oh, good. So, your Kiss, Mary, Kill is Dalinar, Raoden, and Kelsier.
Uh, Mary Raoden.
Remember, the other 2 are genocidal maniacs.
I was gonna say
And Dalinar has a fiery temper, one might say.
oh, stop. I guess we're not talking Blackthorn Dalinar. We're talking like
I guess whatever Dalinar you want.
I'm thinking like Rhythm of War Dalinar.
Sure.
Sure. So you're into older men. Okay.
I know.
Just saying.
I don't know that I want to kiss either of them.
Really?
Do I have
You'd
to
kiss-
switch it around to kiss Raoden? But I think Raoden's so sweet. I've already told you he's like my favorite. Oh,
Yeah.
I just feel weird kissing either of them. I have to imagine that I'm like the same age. Because you guys like Kelsier's in like what, his low 40s, young 40s,
He's in
I
his
thought he was like
early to
30s.
mid 30s.
early mid 30s.
Yeah.
I'm thinking someone else.
You're thinking of
Dalinar's
Marsh.
like 50
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Dalinar's in his 50s.
or
Yeah.
60.
He's looking like Sean Connery and Indiana Jones. Like,
Oh, see, I could kiss
he's
that.
getting there. Sean Connery, dang it, he's dead, isn't he? Wait, is Sean Connery dead? Because he would be a
I don't
perfect
know.
Dalinar.
He really would.
Sure.
But
I mean,
That
we
is
have-
another
yeah, he
segment.
died.
We have AI, but now, I mean, we can just use AI as Sean Connery.
No, but that's the segment we need to do is casting the Cosmere. Okay. Marry Raoden, kiss Dalinar, kill Kelsier.
Okay.
Why would you kill Kelsier? You cannot kill him. He is the one thing you cannot kill.
Send him to the cognitive realm permanently.
He is the one you can't get rid of.
Banish him to the banish him from the physical realm.
Why? Come on, give us the why.
Because Kelsier and Dalinar, yes, they're both like crazy and like killer when we first see them, but Dalinar grows up and matures into something much better than I think Kelsier does. Kelsier, I mean, he ascends to preservation and like helps Vin like, defeat Ruin and all that stuff. But ultimately, especially we see him in the Lost Metal, we understand that he is Sevandrius is Hoyd.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Evandrius? Hoyd?
Oh, you're
Wood?
thinking.
I'm thinking, what's Kelstier's name? Other name, the Ghost Blood.
Thydakar.
Thydakar.
Master
We know
Thydakar,
he's
Lord of
Thydakar,
Stars.
and we don't like the Ghost Bloods on Roshar, right?
For
So
now.
yeah, we don't like that. That's what I said. The ones on Roshar, the ones on Scadrial, and on, don't know much. But that's the thing. Kelsier doesn't improve as far as I can see. As far as we've seen, Kelsier just comes a little bit investiture hungry, right? Dalinar is one. Dalinar and Raoden, that's the problem. Dalinar and Raoden would both better fit the Mary category, but if I had to choose my favorite, it would be Raoden, which is why Dalinar gets put down to kissing.
Wait. Okay, I've got a question for you then, Glorf.
Yeah.
Adolin, Renarin, and Elhokar.
And Elhokar?
Elhokar.
I can't say kill Elhokar because that's
You're
just
right.
wrong.
Yeah.
It turns me into Moash.
Only if you do it
Yeah.
out of revenge.
It would probably be kiss Adolin, marry Renarin.
Kill
Really?
Elhokar.
Yeah.
Why would you choose Renarin over Adolin? This is like there are a lot of fangirls out there that are yelling at you and very angry because they're like, "Oh my gosh!" There's also fanboys, not judging. That's the way you swing. So there are a lot of people out there that are like, "Why wouldn't you choose Adolin? He's my favorite. He's basically a
Oh, I
golden
love
retriever
I
in
love
human
Adolin.
form."
I love Adolin.
But you think he's
But-
got enough practice to be exciting when you kiss him?
That was honestly kind of it. Renarin, you have to Renarin's the sort of thing, it has to be a long-term commitment to this is not just how to kiss, but Renarin isn't one that you can see getting into a relationship very soon, right? Renarin is an awkward child. He's going to take he's going to need some direction and but Adolin knows what he's doing. I'm sure he'd be good for a makeout session.
Okay.
Honestly,
Well,
I
now we
don't
all
disagree
know.
with any of your answers. I agree with all of your guys' answers for different reasons, but I agree with every answer that has been said here so far.
Okay.
Like, I'd
But
also
I
marry
wouldn't-
Now we
on
know.
Kiss Adolin, but I mean,
But I also wouldn't kill Elhokar. You can't kill Elhokar. You're not
have
allowed.
to. Well, you already
He's-
married Renarin and kissed Adolin, so you have to kill Elhokar. I'm sorry.
No, I can just leave it at that.
No.
Okay.
We all know the implications.
The implication, because of the implication. Yeah. Okay. Sweet.
All right. And now we have we have just a little bit of Sanderson news. So Sanderson didn't give us a weekly update. But Fort has a little bit of a kind of cool thing Sanderson's doing right now.
Yeah, so they've been releasing just these little clips, like 2 to 5 minutes about each order. So far, they've done the Windrunners, Skybreakers, and Dustbringers. And so if you haven't seen or heard those, go check them out. It's really cool. It's just like a little excerpt of someone's notes about each of the orders. And probably when this one comes out, there'll probably be 2 more. I'm assuming it'll be, let me see. It would be the Edge Dancers and the Truth Watchers, I believe.
Oh, it is kind of going around the circle, huh?
Mhm.
Because it started
Windrunners,
with Windrunners and then Skybreakers,
Skybreakers,
and then Dustbringers.
then Edge Dancers, Truth Watchers, Light Weavers, Else Callers, Whale Shapers, Stone Wards, and then
Bonsmiths.
Bondsmiths. Yeah.
I am
Ladies
so
and gentlemen,
impressed.
I want to tell you how impressive Fort was. He wasn't looking at anything. He was just looking at it in his mind and going around in his brain. He has all those memorized. So
In order.
yeah, that's hats off right there. It's dedication. So, question for you, Fort. Has Brant Sanderson announced what he will be doing after he finishes Stormlight 5? What's the next project in line?
I know it's in his Year of Sanderson update. No, State of the Sanderson. That's what it is.
I think he said Elantris too.
So he's going to be working on both Mistborn Era 3 and Elantris 2 and 3. He's working on all 5 of those books around the same time. He's also working on adapting White Sand into novel as well. I know it said in the State of Sanderson that was released like last month, something about Horneater and everything. We're not getting Mistborn Era 3 until 2026. So don't like be going crazy out there thinking it's coming next year. From what I understand, it's not. But he'll be working on all those.
That's exciting. Woo!
Yeah, but it means we're getting a big gap between Stormlight books. I love the Mistborns and I love Elantris, but that's just a long gap.
It is. I mean, it's the end of an arc. We have to have. He usually does 3 years in between, and with the end of the arc, he has to get Era 3 and the rest of the Elantris trilogy out before he can start the second arc.
He wrote Elantris so long ago, I didn't think he was going to do it as a trilogy. I thought it was just a standalone thing. I mean, not entirely standalone, like
Yeah.
Cell shows up in other books, but
Yeah. I mean, because
Yeah,
I've been told that Cell, Roshar, and Scadrial are the three pillars of the Cosmere.
Really? What about Nalthis? Where are my Hallinger and homies at? I'm gonna
He
be
may or
honest.
may not be making a sequel called Nightblood.
Yeah, I
It
hope he
may or
is.
may not happen, but I mean, he's been
It
saying
may or
that
may
as
not
long as he's been telling us that he'd make, what is it, Arithmetist sequel. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I'd rather have
Brandon.
Nightblood than Arithmetist sequel. Out of the three of us, I'm the only one that's read the Arithmetist, and it was
that's
great.
true.
It can end where it is. He doesn't need to add another. Just keep the Cosmere coming.
Yeah.
We just don't want to be stuck in a, Jordan, Robert Jordan situation. So
Yeah.
there's just no, I don't know who, I mean, Robert Jordan's works were amazing and epic. And then the only way the universe could compensate was producing an author equal that was amazing and epic enough to finish that series. And I just don't believe the universe could produce a more epic and awesome author than Brandon Sanderson. So
I mean, Isaac and Dan are his runners up.
Jancy Patterson is also like she could help too. That's the thing. He has this entire team of people that actually write with him to some extent.
For
So
the
it's like,
event in case he dies.
they're like his apprentices.
He's holding
Yeah.
the apprentice.
He's creating an army of authors.
an army of authors.
Love it. I love it.
Hey, you guys are making us sound like some sort of weird cult now.
Oh,
The
Awesome.
pen is mightier than the sword. Just saying.
Awesome. Do we have
All
any
right.
other Sanderson updates? Any other news?
nothing yet. I mean, when this gets published in hopefully a week or two, there'll probably be an update, but right now, that's all we know.
Yeah, he said first week or two of January there wouldn't be anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready?
for book club?
Book club.
Club.
Book club. So
And
Yeah.
attached to this, when this episode gets published, either in the description or in the comments, we will include the reading schedule.
and we'll try and put it on our website.
And
if
we'll
our
try to
website
put
exists by the time this gets published.
Yes. And so we will be covering the first 2 weeks, January 1st through January 15th, 14th, whatever this next Saturday is. 13th.
Yeah.
So it's January 1st through January 13th is what we will be covering, which begins with the Way of Kings. So the prelude to the Stormlight Archive, all the way through chapter, I believe it is 17, A Bloody Red Sunset. And so here on out, this is now our spoiler-free zone. We will only be talking about these chapters. We won't be making any other connections that will spoil anything else in the Cosmere or later Sanderson books. So if you're here just for book club, now's the time to start.
Yeah, and just a heads up. So we did it by breaking up chapters. It wasn't just like, okay, this many chapters each week. We were also looking to group it together. So at no point did the reading end in the middle of a Sanderlanche, because that's just unfair to anybody involved. I mean, and I'll be honest, like if I was in the middle of a Sanderlanche and we couldn't discuss the other half, I'd just be all like, well, that's too bad. Spoilers abound, because Sanderlanche, I mean, how can you stop a Sanderlanche? But
Facts.
like
And
at the
just
end,
for
yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
It is 330 pages. So it's actually not a whole lot in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's 330 pages. I'm listening to the audiobook again, so I don't actually know the page.
Same. I just opened my book up because I have it with me.
And it was all the way through chapter 17 or
Yeah.
until chapter 17. Okay.
Yeah. So 18 is High Prince of War, and that starts on page 331.
All right, there we go.
Proof. High Prince of War. Ah, man, I can't wait until we get to the point we can start making memes about that. I've got a great one. I've been planning for years.
Book club. Everybody's
Yeah.
thoughts.
It is so, I love restarting this series because this was all three of us. This was our first book. And it's one of those that, like, I feel like normal people would read a 1,000 page book like once in their lives. And this is what, my third or fourth time going through the Stormlight series. I think this might only be my third, but no, I think it's my fourth time because I read it all right before Rhythm of War. And then I think I read it all twice in my third or fourth time. I think same for you guys, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I've read it probably about 3 or 4 times because I read it initially once. I read it before Rhythm of War. I've also read it before Lost Metal. And there may or may not have been another time where I've read it after I finished everything else in the Cosmere before Rhythm of War came out.
That's what I'm thinking my schedule went like too.
I think I'm at 5 or 6, or I don't know, because I read it my first time. Then I read it when I introduced Glorf to it. Then I read it again when I introduced several relatives to it. And then I think I read it one more time just because it's like, it's the circle of Cosmere. You know, each year you're like, okay, I finally finished all the other Sanderson books. So now I can come back to the new one and it feels fresh. And it's a nice little circle from which you never escape and is awesome. And then there was the time before Rhythm of War came out. So I think I'm pushing 5 or 6. I'm not sure. But I mean, I don't know. Every time I'm like, oh, is this the time I don't enjoy it? And it's just every time it's like, yeah.
That's very true every time. Like, I always remember the first thoughts that I had reading this book because the Doug was the one who introduced it to me. He's like, oh, this is a really great book. And The Way of Kings, I hear that. I'm like, is it a self-help book? I've probably talked about that a few times because that's what it sounded like is, oh, it's The Way of Kings, how to be a good person like a king. I'm like, meh.
It
It opens
exactly
up.
is that.
It
It is
really
the Way of Kings, is how to be a good person.
True. And it just opens up and with Kalek and just talking about this random stuff that's going on. And I remember thinking, is he dead? He has died, but he's alive. What?
the
That
prelude is the fact that it's the prelude to an entire series, and you're at this, and it's just like he just like drops you in and tells you to learn how to swim because you're like, why are there 3 different? That was one thing I was talking to the Doug about. There are 3 different colors of blood, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, hey, I know 2 of the species, right? But what's the third one? And we like had to talk to figure it out, like, and you're dropped into all of a sudden. Even now, this many times, the prelude still, there's so many parts I'm like, I still don't get all of this. Like, I don't think we're going to understand the prelude until the end of book 10.
And to be honest here, we have to remember that that's one thing, about this book is that there's the prelude and the prologue, and then chapter 1's basically still a prologue. Because chapter 1 is like, okay, hey, and then boom, it suddenly jumps to something else, and you don't really start the main story until about
and
chapter
everybody
2.
dies in every single chapter.
Yeah, everybody's dead. It's like dead.
Yeah.
King Gavilar dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
All those
dead.
things. Yeah.
It's just
Then dead.
right.
And I know the prelude, we talk about the prelude and everything, and it's like we all know that the prelude's at the beginning of the Way of Kings, but ultimately, if you ask anyone what is the first line in the Stormlight Archive, they're all going to say,
Szeth-son-son-Vallano,
Son-son-Vallano,
truthless of Shinovar, wore white
white
on the day
he was to kill a king.
a king.
it is
So,
a very epic
it's just,
opening.
it is.
Like, I'm really
Because-
excited to reread this after Stormlight 5 when we get Szeth's backstory. It's just
Oh, yeah. But that's the thing, it drops you in a weird name, Szeth-son-son-Vallano, right? What the heck is a truthless? Where the heck is Shinovar? And then but then we understand the concepts of wearing white and killing a king. And it's like, wait, hold on. Like, it just drops you in and sends you swimming with just that most epic of sentences.
And I don't know. Yeah, that's definitely one of those books that I remember when I first read it. It was kind of like I was just like, okay, I just need to go with the flow for a little while, and eventually I'll start figuring out what's going on. And I can now confidently say, after reading over 4,000 pages and listening to hundreds of hours of audiobook, I still have very little idea what's going on.
Very
So,
true. I
because
didn't understand half of what was going on, but every time I read it, I'm getting better at it. I just try and keep in my mind the orientation that Szeth is doing. He's on the floor, and now he's on the wall, and then he's on the ceiling, and he's back on the floor.
And then
And
the
now this
soldiers
is
on the
down.
ceiling, and then
Yeah. Every time I'm like trying to keep up with the orientation, because that was the first thing I was able to do. I'm like, he's sucking in something, yes, from the things and a magic blade, and he's jumping now. I can understand jumping. Jumping makes sense.
so for all those you who are reading it for the first time, like if you're super confused, you're not alone.
Not at all.
But
Not
you
at
stick with it, and by the end, you're like, I don't care that I was confused. That was the best thing I ever read. So let's talk
and
about.
that is
Go
oh, I
ahead.
would say that's one thing that Sanderson, I feel like in this book especially, he does real well. There's hardly any just like, and here's the information laid out, right? There's hardly any of that. Most of it you figure out. Stormlight, I mean, by the end of these 17 chapters plus the prologue and the prelude, I feel like most of us have a pretty decent understanding of Stormlight. It glows, right? It comes in gemstones. It's renewed in the storms, and somehow Szeth breathes it in. Like, that's already without him sitting here saying this is how it's done. We understand these things about this essential part of the Stormlight Archive. Is that a spoiler that Stormlight's essential? It's part of the name.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big part
And
of it.
so, and that's the thing. There isn't just because even in Mistborn, there's some like sit and explain, but in Way of Kings, he manages to teach you these things naturally as you explore the story. We discover the lore, we discover the topography, we discover all these things as the story goes along.
Yeah, no one ever sits down in front of a map and says, this is where this place is, and over on this side of the planet, this is here. We discover it with the people, kind of through the people as they go and do things. And just for anyone else who's confused by the money system, fourth, fifth time through, I'm still barely understanding that there are chips, marks, and bromes.
Is there nothing in between a mark and a brome?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
There are different colors, like there's a sapphire mark, a ruby mark.
Oh, yeah,
Or a
because
fire mark is
the
what it's
type of
called.
gemstone also changes the value.
Yeah, diamond is the least valuable. and
Emerald is the
Emerald
most.
is the most valuable because it can be used to make grain.
Okay.
I say because I remember that because it was a big deal in that chapter with Shalon, the fact that the books cost emerald
And
bromes
emerald
was like,
bromes, yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, so it just goes chip, mark, and brome. Which, if
Okay.
anybody is wondering, a chip is about 20 milligrams, a mark is about 100 milligrams, and a brome is 400 milligrams, or 2 carats.
Of course, that information is like
Sure. I still barely understand it, but okay. It sounds expensive, yes.
So just before we go for, okay, need to check before I say something. We're just spoiler free for Stormlight Archive itself, not the rest of the Cosmere, right?
Well, we can't talk about the rest of the Cosmere either.
I'd say I thought it was rest of the Cosmere as well.
Okay, but
because then we're not
Just-
spoiling it for people
just-
joining us the first time.
Prelude to
Okay.
chapter 17. That's all we got right now.
yeah, I know, but there's a particular one of the interludes. You totally see autonomy working.
We will have to discuss this sometime when it is not book club.
But yeah, no, it's pretty obvious. Once you know what to look for. So, okay, we'll leave it as a mystery. We'll have a few minutes at the end of book club that are not spoiler free because they are both looking at me like I'm an idiot. And I'm like, no, I saw this before and I came back and read it. And I'm like, yeah, I knew
Well,
what
I
I'm
believe
talking
you.
about.
And I think that a part of book club, I mean, just kind of stepping outside of the chapters for a second, I feel like it is acceptable to give small hints. Like in one of the interludes, there are characters you see from other books.
Yeah.
As you read more of the Cosmere, you'll start to recognize them. And it's a really fun connection.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about this. How do you guys feel about Shalon in part 1?
I was telling Fort before we started about how, so my mother is reading these with us, and she's only read The Way of Kings before. And she told me, she's like, I'm reading synopses of the Shallan chapter. She's like, I struggle with them. And since I've read this book before, I'm letting myself skip them. Like, Shallan's an important character, and there are parts with her. I actually think the way that she pursues Yasna and manages to do that is actually like really like, I don't know. I feel like that's actually a really cool storyline. But Shallan herself, she thinks she's so funny, and it bugs me. And it makes those chapters a struggle sometimes.
That's one of the things I love about Shallan's character development over time is that Brandon writes her very well as somebody that's naive and doesn't know a whole lot about the world at the beginning, and it comes off as annoying almost. But
I mean, she's what, 17? 17-year-olds can be very annoying.
What about you, Ford? What do you think about Shallan? Let me ask you this. Have you ever skipped a Shallan chapter while reading Way of Kings?
No. Because
No?
I just have, it's not because, oh, I love her chapters. They're not my favorite. I don't love them. It is part of the story, and getting more context to the story and going back and rereading it is the fun I love in the Cosmere, and especially Stormlight. And I still get that even with the Shallan chapters, which is actually interesting, because her father doesn't like her going out in the garden by herself, which I found interesting that I picked up on this reread.
So, what was everybody's favorite chapter or interlude from what we've read thus far?
What were the interludes that we read? There was
Ishik, Non-Balat,
Non-Balat, and Szeth. Non-Balat creeps me out.
Yeah.
Non-Balat liked killing things. That's a way to start a chapter.
One thing I find super hilarious is that Non-Balat, while he's thinking to himself, he's all like, the only sane one left is me and Shallan, and everybody else is crazy as he's torturing small animals. It's like, okay, yeah, you're totally sane there, buddy.
I caught that. I think it said like he thought that as he like cracked the shell open. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like a crab.
Yeah, that's the other thing that has just taken me multiple times and I still don't get right. What do these animals actually look like? Because like I still don't have any idea what an axe hound looks like. I just know it has carapace and mandibles.
And it doesn't actually look like a dog.
Yeah. I honestly just think of it as an undead skeleton dog.
Well, have you ever watched, I haven't actually seen it, but Nightmare Before Christmas? I always imagine it like that little ghost dog because it has like a skeleton face. I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen plenty of pictures of it.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it. Yeah, that's always kind of what I imagine is a skeleton dog with Zero's face from Nightmare Before Christmas. Even though I know that's not what it is.
I think my favorite chapter is probably chapter 13, 10 Heartbeats. Just because the Chasm Fiend comes out and everyone's panicking because nobody knows what to do because it's not supposed to be here. And it starts with like 10 heartbeats. That's how long it takes to summon a Shardblade. And at this point, we kind of understand what a Shardblade is because Szeth had one in the prologue and they've been talked about a little bit, that they're these very powerful weapons. And it talks about the 10 heartbeats that takes Dalinar to summon it. And then all the destruction and everything he does after that of taking down this giant Chasm Fiend, the biggest one they've ever hunted, is just insane. It shows very well who each of the characters are, who Dalinar is, who Adolin is, who Sadeas is, and who Elhokar is. The first time I read it, I didn't know who any of their names were. And I remember talking to the Doug about it. I'm like, a big monster, people are fighting a big monster. Because all the names blurred together. But now I can distinctly tell who is who.
Well, and that's one thing I was thinking as I was listening to my ardent Michael Kramer read it to me this week, as I was listening to it. I just love how the part with Dalinar is that at first he's introduced and it's like, oh, he's going mad. Maybe he's not that great of a warrior. Maybe he is actually deteriorating. But Brandon quashes that in the first big chapter with Dalinar, where he just hauls himself and he's like, no, Chasm Fiend. And he just catches the claw like, sucker. And it's like, okay, clearly Dalinar is bad A. He's a BAMF, okay? And everybody else just needs to back up. He is not some old doddering fool. This dude is a heavy hitter. So I love that you point that out. I love that. So
Yeah. What about you, Doug? What's your favorite chapter?
okay, so this is hard for me because it's chapter 14, Payday. I really love.
Oh,
And
yeah.
here's why. It's just one part actually in particular, like the very beginning, that I really love. It's the first time we see Moash as a character, and the first interaction Kaladin has with him that we see is him slamming his fist into his gut, just really punching the crap out of him. And for me, that just is like beautiful because, I just love that. But if I had to choose another one, I'd say chapter 11, Droplets. It's the one where Kaladin, he's standing at the edge of the chasm and he's like, I'm going to jump in. And then Syl just like brings him the leaf and he's like, okay, it convinces him there's still some good in the world. And just the part where he walks up to Gaz and he strangles him. And he's like, listen, you can't kill me. I already died. And Gaz is probably peeing himself because it's like this dude just walked off to the honor chasm to kill himself. And now he's back and he's like crazy. And he's like, ah! And so just that line where he's like, can't kill me. I've already died. It's just awesome. So that's probably at the top of my list because I love literature. I love good lines. And that for me, that's a beautiful one-liner. So Glorf, why don't you round us out? Tell us your favorite chapter in The Way of Kings between the Prelude and chapter 17.
Favorites are hard. I think I've said that every time we've had to list a favorite. I was going to say Droplets as well. But instead of that line with Gaz, my favorite part is just the innocence of Syl. She wanted to make him happy. I went so far, I almost lost myself. I saw that this leaf made you happy, and I thought it would make you happy again. And then how in Payday, she goes, Kaladin, that leaf I brought you was poison. He goes, mm-hmm. And just how, because I have little kids. And there have been times I have allergies, and there have been times my kids have offered me food that I can't eat. And it reminds me a little bit of that, just that tenderness of, here's a piece of a cookie. I can't eat the cookie, but the fact that this little child is willing to give up a piece of that. And it's the same thing with Sylphrena, that childlike, just, I want to make you happy. I want to help you. I went to so much effort and I did so much. And that more than anything is what kind of convinces Kaladin this poisonous leaf he could use to kill Gaz, he could use to kill himself. He uses it instead to try as an inspiration to help other people live, right? That poisonous leaf is his inspiration to help Bridge 4 live. And we see that starting in Payday.
Yeah, I love it, especially because still like, what's one more try? If they're all gonna die, why can't you try just one more time? It won't change anything. Just try. It's great. I love Syl. Syl is just amazing. I love her.
And there's some interesting parallels with another part that we can't talk about yet because we don't get payoff for a long time. But yeah, man. So
do we have any other thoughts we want to add to book club? Because I know we had one more thing we wanted to discuss today. Any last thoughts about this beginning of the Way of Kings?
I'm excited to read more.
Yeah,
it is so hard to stop.
It is.
I actually have I had a friend give me a book for Christmas that I didn't really want to read it. It's one of those series that begin to get spicy, and I'm not into those. I'm not into the smut in books, but I need something to read once I'm done with Way of Kings. So I just bookmarked the bad pages. I mean, what I consider bad pages, no judgment if you're into that, dear listener. But I bookmarked the pages I didn't want to read, and that's what I'm reading in the background because I can't go without something. And if I can't get ahead, I got to replace it. Oh, this book is wonderful. And for those of you that are reading it for the first time and are feeling overwhelmed, I hope you feel our excitement and that you are getting excited to continue. And so with that, we're going to allow for spoilers for just a minute. Doug, you got a couple minutes. Tell us about autonomy.
Okay, so it's the Ishik interlude.
Okay.
Okay.
I figured.
Yeah,
Not
here's what it
surprised.
is. Okay, because the whole Pure Lakers religion is that they worship Unmakak.
Okay.
I don't remember. Their whole religion is they worship one god
But
for
they pretend they
reals
worship the other.
because the other god is jealous and will curse them. This is almost the exact same religion as the exact same
Trell.
tenets as Trellism.
Okay.
That yeah, because what is
The many
Trellism all
eyes of
about?
Trell.
Yeah, that Trell is okay. There's the one super bright light that's the sun, that his jealous brother, but then there are the thousand eyes of Trell watching over them. Now here it goes beyond that though, okay? Because it also comes in Six of the Dusk. Okay, in Six of the Dusk, you remember that we get the AVR, right? And the AVR are
Okay.
magic. And why are the AVR magic? Because they're a bunch of grubs that live in this pool that's a perpendicularity, and the AVR eat the grubs and then they get investiture, right? Well, Ishik is also talking about how there are magic fish in the Pure Lake, and they'll help him find. And he's all like, "I can catch you a fish that'll help you find who you're looking for and whatnot." And everybody's like, the first time you're like, "Okay, Ishik's just some crazy guy." And even the people that are following, looking for the stranger, which we won't spoil, they're all like, "Yeah, he's just crazy talking about magic fish." But we know there are such things as like magic animals in the Cosmere, and so I contend that the Pure Lake or parts of the Pure Lake are slowly autonomy's power is starting to gather there, and is starting to infuse the wildlife, and that the Trellism, it's the same pattern as Trellism is being used in the religion of the Pure Lakers, because she's eventually going to make a move for it. Besides, we already know she has some interest in Roshar.
Everywhere.
Well, everywhere, but
Everywhere.
Roshar especially, because well, I guess that's too many spoilers. But okay, that's
I mean, I
why.
feel like there's a lot of contemplation there that we don't really know, but yeah.
Okay, and now we have a discussion we've been wanting to have for a while, actually.
Haven't gotten to it.
Doug is going to lead us in a discussion of putting books on the Grimdark to Noblebright scale.
So, we've been preparing this discussion for a while. We may do it multiple times because this is just a really fun one to talk about. But for those dear listeners who aren't familiar, there's this idea of the spectrum of settings from Noblebright to Grimdark. Okay, and it's actually a matrix, and so there are three. If you ever seen a D&D alignment chart, it's like that. At the top left, you have Noblebright, and then next to it, over to the right, you have Bright, and then you have Grimbright, and then you have Nobledark, and Grimdark is the opposite of Noblebright. And so, before we really get into it, before we start discussing where various Sanderson works fall on this alignment chart, let's give a little bit of an example, a little bit of an explanation. So a Noblebright world is one that's super happy and wonderful, and what it means to be bright is that the world is exciting and happy and an adventure, and it's just fun.
It's worth saving.
Worth saving is an important part. The noble part comes from that there can be good done in the world. The people can be good. You can do good things and make the world better. Individuals matter. The quintessential Noblebright setting is Pokemon. Think about Pokemon, even the criminals are like, when the time comes, in all the Pokemon movies, Team Rocket's always like, "Oh no, we'll do the right thing and we'll help Ash because it's just Noblebright. Even if Ash gets hurt or something, you're like, everything's going to be okay." And it's just there's no worry. Everything's wonderful.
Except for the one time he turned to stone, Mewtwo almost killed him.
Right, but even when Mewtwo turns him to stone, all the Pokemon's tears magically fix it, and you're like, "Oh, yay!"
Yeah.
So now on the flip end is Grimdark, and Grimdark is everything's horrible. Your life is short, nasty, and brutish. You can do whatever you might be able to do good things, but you're only going to be able to do good things and make the world better by doing some extremely distasteful things. There's no good options. Every choice is a bad option. It's grim because there's no easy options. Even the heroes are going to have to do horrible things, and it's dark because there's no future. You look at the world and it's just, ugh. And the quintessential Grimdark setting is Warhammer 40K, which is actually the one that coined the term Grimdark. That's like everything horrible and miserable and nothing can be good. And even if you try and save somebody, it doesn't matter because they're going to get eaten by monsters in a week anyway. And if you want to save your men, it's like, okay, but you have to let a bunch of civilians die, etc., etc. Now, on the other corners, you've got Grimbright, which is a little bit of a hard one to think about. But Grimbright is where you have a world that's very shiny and open. And it's very much like, oh, these cool futuristic things. But underneath, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. There's very much a corrupt, evil element. A good example is if anybody's read Brave New World. It seems very bright and happy on the surface, but underneath it turns out it's tyrannical authoritarian government. Or The Time Machine, the Eloys and the Murlocs, if you read H.G. Wells. So, and then in the other corner, you have Noble Dark. It's where the world isn't in a great place and things are kind of crummy, but that you can make the world better. People can make it better through concentrated effort. And the biggest example there is Lord of the Rings, right? Lord of the Rings is getting worse and worse. The elves are all leaving, the magic is disappearing, and the Dark Lord's making more and more. And like all the good people and the kings and whatnot, it's all gone. And it's like, oh man, things aren't nearly as good as they used to be. But through the efforts of certain individuals, they're able to change the trajectory of the world. So the last thing to emphasize is this is not like a strict, like, okay, these things make it this way and this not. It's not an idea of we have very specific boxes, because once you get too specific, just like with D&D alignment, it starts to get all out of whack. But it's the general tone and atmosphere and feeling you have as you read the books. It's not like going to be hard, pin it down, because every book has difficult things. Every book has elements of each, but it's about what is the general feel of all of that. So for Glorf, you have any questions on behalf of our viewers or anything you'd like to explain before we start categorizing the heck and having one of the most fascinating discussions?
It is kind of complicated. I've never really done this, but as I have questions, I'll pose them. And as we talk about it, it'll get a little bit easier for me to distinguish and understand for me personally.
Yeah. And there's also true neutral. So there's a neutral setting, which is basically our world. Usually. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, nothing's really to any extreme in that one. I think, and this isn't a question about this, what if we start and do the 7 Mistborn books, and then we'll see how much time we have from there. But we'll start because I think it'll be interesting to do those books all in order, because some of them have just very different feels to them, and seeing where each Mistborn book ends up on this scale.
So let's, in that case, do you mind if we start out with the easiest one to place, in my mind, Hero of Ages? In my mind, Hero of Ages is the most grimdark book Brandon has written. And here's why. Ages? Yeah, Hero of Ages. Because here's the thing, is that they're frantically, the world is ending. Like, they're trying everything they can to do. It doesn't matter when even all the things they're trying to do, like Ellen goes to Fadrix and then they realize it doesn't matter if we take Fadrix, everybody's going to die. The world is ending. It's getting covered in ash. Even Vin's all like, I'm going to go and kill the Inquisitors and I'm going to stop Ruin. I don't know how. And like, even if the heroes do everything they can, it's like the world is still ending. Everybody's going to die. The big decision that the Ellen has to make is, okay, do I let my people starve? Do I leave Fadrix? Do I abandon my kingdom and risk thousands of lives? Or do I go and attack it with an army full of Koloss and kill a bunch of thousands of other people? And it's like everything's horrible and miserable up until the very last minute when Szeth is sitting there crying and he's like, you were supposed to save us. You had a plan. And then boom, it just barely squeaks by. And so in my mind, Hero of Ages is the most grimdark book Brandon has probably ever written thus far. It's just like everything's miserable. There are no good decisions. And it's going to be horrible no matter what you do, because even the heroes doing their best. It's like, okay, you can't stop the ash. You can't stop the mist. We're all going to die horribly. Even when one of you becomes a god, it's like, oh, you're a god. You roasted the entire planet.
Yeah, even the god dies.
Like Vin tries to help out and do things, but then she just makes things almost as worse as when the Lord Ruler did everything.
She doesn't have time to... She doesn't have the opportunity to like have time to learn how to fix things. She's trying to fix things now before everything explodes. Yeah, no, with the fact that Ellen, I think you're right. Actually, I doubted you, the Doug, but I think a big part of it is just the fact that where Vin and Ellen both die, the heroes of the story, the heroes that like the main protagonists, right? Because I mean, there are other protagonists like Szeth and Spook, but like our romantic couple, the main protagonists both die in very and after they do, the world is still ending. The ash is still falling.
Yeah.
And they died. And it really is. I sometimes I'm like, it can't be grimdark because the world is saved in the end, but it's like saved in like the epilogue.
Yeah.
So
I can agree with that, honestly. Like Hero of Ages is definitely grimdark. With that, I feel like that the final empire, I would kind of think as Nobledark, if not also Grimdark, just because the way you explain Nobledark, it's a horrible system, but these people get together and they try and they do actually change things. It wasn't as big of a drastic of a thing as Hero of Ages, where all the protagonists died and, they barely saved it by the skin of teeth. Kelsier died and he had to do that. And their entire rebellion died. Well, I mean, it was a little bit, it wasn't as dark and gloomy. Like, the world wasn't ending. If they failed, the world would have still went on the way it was.
That's
Nothing
true.
would have changed.
The final empire, it was more about the society than about the planet.
Yeah.
And I think part of what makes Hero of Ages so grimdark is it's the planet dying, whereas Final Empire, it's the Ska being oppressed and dying. So yeah, I would say Noble Dark, or maybe somewhere in the middle, like just dark.
Neutral dark.
Neutral
And
dark.
I definitely think I could see it being Noble Dark, because that's the thing, is that there is still this hope that they actually might be able to figure out a way to beat the Lord Ruler, and it gets
And they do.
times. But I don't know. For me, I never felt like, oh my gosh, are they going to be able to pull it off or not? I mean, and Kelsier's sacrifice isn't like, I'm dying because I have nothing left to live for, because that's why she ends up dying, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I have nothing left to live for because you killed Ellen, so I'm going to kill myself and you. I want to die. I'm taking you. But in Noble Dark, it's like Kelsier's like, his last words are, I am hope, as he gets the world's best slap, the most epic slap in all of history. And the world's like, but at the end, it's like, you feel hopeful, right? You feel hopeful through a lot of it. So I definitely say Noble Dark on there. So Glorf, where would you put the Well of Ascension? Since it's our last Mistborn, we'll round out the discussion.
See, I was going to ask you guys, because Well of Ascension I feel like Well of Ascension is a little bit more different, because that's when the world does start to kind of, right? The mists aren't killing people. The mists aren't killing people yet, but like they're still doing something.
Well, at the end they are.
That's true. They do at the very end, right before they find the well. And it ends with ruin. I am free. And so I feel like, I don't know that I feel like it's closer to Grimdark.
I feel like it's Grimbright. Like, the world is starting to be better. They still have troubles. And the normal everyday life of everybody is pretty stable and pretty good. If you're a normal Ska in Lutherdale,
you're dealing with starvation and a besieging army, and like, hey, everybody else that was of fighting age, if you're not in Lutherdale, got pressed into an army to die in a war. Like, yeah, I don't know that I'd say bright. Like,
maybe just
I feel
Grim.
that's a stretch.
Yeah,
maybe
I could say
Grim.
Yeah, neutral Grim, maybe.
Because it's like they are like this little chart I'm looking at, it says accomplishments are fleeting, right? Like they created a democracy, right? But that's fleeting. Ellen gets kicked out, right? Szeth and Tindwyl are doing this amazing research, but that is also fleeting, right?
Yeah.
And then they manage to like overcome the Koloss army, but then they release Ruin, right? So I just from that, I'm wondering if neutral Grim is kind of the way to go.
I can see neutral Grim. I think that makes sense.
I mean, I'm gonna go with, I just think it's dark sliding into Grimdark, right? Because that's the thing, is that, I mean, let's think about it from like clubs or Dachshund's perspective. They have their secret meeting and they're like, we're all going to die, and there's nothing we can do. The absolute best we can hope for is to convince Ellen and Vin to leave the city before they get like dead. Like, their victory is, okay, let's try and get not all of us killed. That's the bar for victory. And that's the thing, is that the entire time it's the super tense, like, back and forth. Meanwhile, you've got Zane doing whatever he is, and you think about like Szeth visiting the villages, and they're like, I mean, what is it, Likau? It's
Justice Likau.
Yeah, Justice Likau. Yeah. Why does he show up with an army of Koloss? Because his entire family, including his baby sister, got slaughtered. by other bands of other warring nobles. And at the end, you're like, okay, finally, we've got hope. It's going to work out. And it's all like, oh, we had problems before, but you like made them 10 times worse, Vin. Like, oh, that's
Actually,
unfortunate.
That's where the
So it
Grimdark,
goes.
you're right, that's where the Grimdark comes in. She was trying to do the right thing
So
and
Hero
made it all worse.
Final of Empire starts as Noble Dark. Wall of Ascension goes to Dark, and then Hero of Ages is Grimdark. It just goes.
I feel like that's the
Grimdark
opposite of
again.
most normal series. Most of the time they start at like a little bit more hopeful and like a little like start like worse and then get more hopeful. Mistborn Era One does the opposite.
Yeah.
Well, and I just think of, for me, the most poignant moment, possibly in all of Sanderson, is, and I've said this before, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but I'm not that sorry, is the part where says it after the battle. And for me, this is what really sets the tone, is he spends all night looking through frozen corpses, trying to find Tyndall. And when he finally finds her, he just sits there crying because he's all like, wow. Like, I don't know. For me, that really sets the mood that even though they saved Luthadel, there's just, at what cost? What does it mean, right? So listeners, you tell us in the comments where you put the various Era One Mistborn novels on the Noblebright Grimdark spectrum, where you think they are, and why you think we're totally wrong, or why you think we're totally right. So does anybody have any last thoughts before we get to the meme off?
Nope. I look forward. I think next podcast we're gonna try to do Era 2. Okay, we'll finish off our Mistborn next time. But other than that, I think we're ready for a meme off. And this week's meme off theme has anything to do with the prelude through chapter 17, something we read during book club. During anything we discussed during book club, that part of the book. Fort, do you have a meme you want to share with us?
I do. I would actually love to go first. So mine is a meme of a pool with a mom with their child. And the mom's holding the child, and the mother is Dalinar saying, "This is all I have to remember Gavilar." And the child she's holding up is Elokar and Alethkar, his son and his kingdom. And over on the side is a child drowning, and that's Yesna. Because he says that, he's like, the only thing I have to remember my brother by is his son and his kingdom. And I'm just like, but you also have Yesna to remember. Like,
Yeah. What about
forget about her?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that until now.
Never
But
thought about that either.
oh man.
I love it. Doug, do you have one for us?
I do. And I don't care that I discussed this earlier because it's just that good. And this is really how I feel. So let's see if I can get it to display correctly. Here we go. Share. Okay. So this is from The Office. If anybody's seen The Office, there's one meme where Stanley from The Office, he's talking about how he gets up every day in a bed that's too small and drives his kid to a school that's too expensive. But on Pretzel Day, I like Pretzel Day. Well, this one is also that. And it starts, every couple of chapters, I deal with a Shalon that's not as funny as she thinks she is. I deal with annoying light eyes that need a fist to the face. But when Kaladin punches Moash, I like Kaladin punching Moash. Because I can't get over this. Again, the first Moash viewpoint chapter we get, the first time he's introduced, is him getting punched in the gut. And for those leaders who don't know why I enjoy that, don't worry, you'll figure it out. He's the worst. Like, the worst people in all of fiction goes Grandpa Joe and then Moash. And we're not going to get started on Grandpa Joe because that genuinely makes me angry and I go off on an unhinged rant. So,
Glorf, would you like to share your meme now?
Yes. I made like 5. And I'm going to do the one that I think is best. I might ask for another, if you guys will allow me to do a second one. So it's the meme with the guy, it's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with the questions. And it's the man who's looking at it like, what the heck? He's got the big eyes. What kind of question is this? And so the question is, why shouldn't you wear white to a wedding? A, it's tacking. B, tacky. B, it's rude. D, it will take attention from the bride. And C, you might end up killing a king.
I like
Because
it. It's
that's
funny.
Szeth-son-son-Vallano.
Ruthless of Shinovar were white on the day he was to kill the king.
Yeah.
We have to say that every time. It's just compulsion. What's the other one? Come on. Bonus me. Bonus me.
Bonus
Bonus
me.
me. Bonus me.
Okay. I told you I made like 7, but I like this one. So you know the little Facebook thing where you can do the little flag that says marked safe from whatever natural disaster? And it says marked safe from nothing because I'm in Bridge 4.
It's funny because everybody in Bridge 4 ends up dead.
Seriously. Thank you for allowing me a bonus.
Spoilers. I'm joking. Yeah. Oh, it's so sad. I've
If
been
you
trying
haven't
to keep
figured it.
track of the people who have died in Bridge 4, like people that have died around Kaladin that are named. I stopped after 5 because, yeah.
Right, I've got Sen and Dalit
Sen,
and
Dalit,
Tien.
TN.
And then there's the guy
the-
sitting on not Leighton, but the other one,
We haven't
Merkel?
gotten there yet.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
we
just
have.
I'm
thinking
just talking
generally.
about what we've read so
there's
far. Oh, yeah.
what we've read
No,
so far.
we have.
Then no,
That's
but
in
I'm
the Bloody
thinking
Red
of-
Sunset.
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean, 2 of them, he doesn't know their names. The kid who gets shot
Dalit,
through the eye.
Sen,
And the leathery faced man.
Dalit, Sen, TN. I was also thinking this one doesn't pop up until later, but I counted it because it's just I'm going chronologically in his timeline. Though he tries to do an escape and she ends up getting caught.
Oh,
and
yeah,
dies.
you're right.
Her, and then yeah, there's like 1 or 2 other people that have died so far, and I'm like, yep, and I just stopped and lost.
Poor
Because I
Cal.
mean, all 30 people in his squad end up dying. So I mean,
I guess, yes, that is technically true. But I only think 2 of them get named in the first
Possibly.
one.
possibly,
Yeah,
but yeah.
you made me remind me of Amaram.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us for the Diggins Point podcast today and for beginning the Stormlight Archive with us. This is
Thanks.
Glorf signing off with Szeth-son-son-Vallano, Truthless of Shinovar, wore white on the day he was to kill a king.
This is the Doug saying, Grandpa Joe could have walked that whole time. He didn't get a golden ticket. He got insurance fraud. He was in that bed for... Charlie is 12 years old. He's been in that bed for 20 years. He didn't get up for his own grandson's birth. And he was stuck in that bed. He didn't walk. And I mean, he doesn't get out of the bed at all. So that means chamber pots in a bed with 4 other people. Grandpa Joe, you're the worst person ever. Anyone seen Grandpa Joe and Hitler in the same room at the same time? No. They're the same person. Only Grandpa Joe is worse somehow. Signing off. Don't let him get away.
This is for signing off. There's a secret just 10 heartbeats away.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Bye.
Screw Grandpa Joe.